said it's about 30 seconds away.
Okay, so good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You're welcome to stand, or you can come and sit down. You'd probably want to sit down just for a moment. We're a minute or so after the top of the hour, so wanted to express our gratitude for everybody who's here right now, and for those who will be showing up later on. Welcome to our Pioneer Park Open House. Really excited for the opportunity we have tonight. This is a first for Kaysville. We haven't really ever built a park in this fashion before, but we're excited to be able to introduce and to receive and get your feedback on the design plans for Pioneer Park. If anybody has any questions about where it is located, Pioneer Park is located out in West Kaysville. It's on Angel Street, immediately north of the charter school, Jefferson Academy, along Angel Street between Snowhorse Elementary and Jefferson Academy. Actually closer to Jefferson than it is to Snowhorse, but either way, it's a 10-acre park. And just so you know, my name is Snell. I serve on the City Council here in Kaysville. And as I mentioned, this is a new process that Kaysville has followed for the development of a park. It's new in that we solicited and received applications from people from in the community to serve on a citizen committee. And we have members of that committee here tonight. If you could raise your hand if you served on our citizen committee. There they are, and that's actually not even all of them. There are a couple of others who aren't here right now. They hopefully will be showing up later. But they served on the committee and got together, and we've actually been meeting over the course of the last 6 months or so, almost, to discuss and deliberate about amenities and about the design elements. We've also got two gentlemen from Blue Line Design here tonight that I'm going to turn the time over to here momentarily, who will present their design and the elements of the park that they've come up with, and then we will solicit your feedback. You can go to the easels over here and to the poster boards that are there, see pictures and samples, and we are, again, soliciting your feedback on the layout of the park, the amenities within the park, and design elements for benches and for the pavilion and those kinds of things. We want to get community feedback on this, so it's going to be a community-wide park for the entire city of Kaysville. So we want as many citizens as possible from the community to give feedback on what you'd like to see. So without further ado, you don't want to hear from the politicians anymore, so I'd like to turn the time over to Corey Shoup and Rob Donegan, so that they from Blue Line Design, so that they can present to you Pioneer Park and their design concepts for it. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. We're very excited to be here and be involved in this process with you as a community. I appreciate the introduction in the background. That was very, very helpful. To add to that a little bit, we were contracted probably around Christmas break, I don't know, maybe before the end of the year barely, and started the project obviously at the beginning of the year, met with the city and staff, and just talked about very preliminary ideas, gathered the input that was already gathered from the Citizens Committee and the meetings that they had prior to us getting on board. Digested that information, talked about it with city staff, and then we went away and we came up with actually a few different concepts that were really rough, and we reviewed that with the Park and Rec staff and kind of talked about different things, and then consolidated those ideas into two different concepts And we then had a meeting with the Citizens Committee and presented those two different concepts to them and got their feedback and refined the plan based on those comments and developed what you see in front of you, which we're calling a preliminary master plan. And we do want to emphasize that it is preliminary. Nothing is set in stone. Again, these are the ideas of us as designers, as the Park and Rec staff, and as the Citizens Committee. And we are here tonight to get feedback from you. So with that, I will walk you through, I have the pointer here somewhere. I will walk you through briefly the preliminary master plan as it is today. With the park being named Pioneer Park, we do want to recognize that there is a reason for it being called Pioneer Park. And we don't want to ignore that as we design the park and as we add amenities into the park. We want to recognize that pioneer heritage. With that said, we know that you already have a heritage park and there's a lot of interpretive and historic elements within that heritage park. And from the city's perspective, they don't want to duplicate that here at Pioneer Park, but yet they still do want to have some inkling or some tie to the pioneer heritage of the area, obviously, hence the name Pioneer Park. So with that said, and I'll try and speak and point at the same time and let me know if you can't hear me. With that in mind, the pioneer heritage, what we wanted to do is obviously create a nice aesthetic looking park that's inviting to the neighborhood and to the users that come and use the park, have exciting elements that are fun and engaging for the children and parents and everyone that's going to come and use the park. So as you come in, this is Angel Street right over here on the left side, on the west side of the park. Jefferson Academy is right here on the south side of the park. And obviously, as you know, surrounded by residential development on the south and east and north of the park site. So as you come in off of Angel Street, we didn't want your first impression of the park to be just a sea of parking. That's not very inviting. And so with that said, we know that for the activities that are going to have to occur at Pioneer Park, we do need to provide ample parking so that there's not overflow into the neighborhood and congestion and all kinds of different things that come along with park traffic. So what we did was, again, going to the Pioneer Heritage, we opened this up and created this strong corridor from Angel Street into the park, visible, making this combined pavilion restroom structure that can be very iconic. And again, we'll get into the details of what that possibly could look like a little bit later. But having something that really says this is Pioneer Park, and having that visible from the street as you go up and down Angel Street there, opening up that corridor, and within this, again, it's hard to read the labels, and again, we can look at it a little more in detail on the boards as we talk, but creating that apron or that entry into the park that has ornamental plantings that are reminiscent of farming fields or crops or crop rows or different things like that. Again, very subtle and can be very beautiful, but still, again, harkens back to that pioneer heritage. And it leads up, again, it sets that apron up to that iconic structure as the focal point of the park. So then as you go in, again, we still have parking, obviously, coming off Angel Street, but try to do it in a more flowing, less jarring way than just a big rectangular sea of parking at the front of the park. And it has a nice general curve as it brings you into the central core of the park. So as you bleed out from that iconic structure, as you bleed out from the core of the park, what you see here are, again, some elements that, again, harken back to the pioneer heritage. What we have here is what we're calling the picnic orchard. Again, just reminiscent of a fruit orchard, that obviously there are those in the area. But what it does provide is, it's between this main pavilion restroom area and what we have labeled as playground and adventure play. And so that's where your kids are going to be. And so if you're not, part of a large group that has reserved that large pavilion or using the large pavilion, what that picnic orchard provides is some filtered shade that you can sit on a picnic table, sit on chairs and tables underneath those trees and be adjacent to the playground area to watch your children play in shade, because we know from the comments from the Citizens Committee and from the city itself that shade is very important adjacent to the playground area, so you're not burning as your kids are playing on the playground. So that's the picnic orchard next to the pavilion and restroom area there. A little bit more about that playground and adventure play area. And this is something that we'll want to get your input on. What kind of playground is that going to be? We don't know at this point. We know we want it to be exciting. We know we want it to be ADA accessible. We know we want it to be safe and engaging, provide for multiple user groups of multiple abilities. But exactly what that is, we'll get your input on. But we did label an area specifically for what we're calling adventure play. What does that exactly mean? We can talk about that. But something that's a little bit different. Maybe it's not just the metal and plastic, bright colored piece of playground equipment that you're used to seeing in a park. Maybe it's bouldering, maybe it's a climbing wall, maybe it's a zip line, maybe it's a slack line. Just these, maybe it's big logs or stepping stones or whatever it may be. Those things are yet to be developed, but it's again something alternative, something different that maybe is a little more alternative and engaging for kids that don't just want to play on the plastic and metal pieces of play equipment. Hopefully we get that back. One second. There we go. So going on with that adventure play, as you can see here, it's a little hard to see, and again, those perspectives that we'll get to show this a little bit better. But what we're proposing is a climbing wall, a bouldering wall, where on the back side of that, it'll be a large berm that maybe, in the winter you can sled off of, but in the summer it's something you can scramble up as a child and have fun and playing on those boulders and on those rocks. One thing that we talked about in the playground area, there is a desire, I mentioned ADA, that's something that we need to address, but there is a desire also to provide for, not your normal, 5 to 12-year-olds, and not even 2 to 5-year-olds, maybe even a little bit younger than that. So having a dedicated area or a dedicated piece of equipment that specifically provides for very, very young children, as we know there are many families in the area. Moving to the south of the pavilion and restroom area, what we show here is something that again, has been voiced as being a desire, and that would be an interactive water feature. And we know that you have one at Heritage Park, a splash pad there, that's probably very well used in the hot summer months. What we would propose here, and the ideas and thoughts on that water feature here, would be something that's not just a splash pad, maybe it's more of a running channel, something that's, you can play in the channel, play in the creek, play in the stream, or something like that. Just to be upfront, we're pretty confident that the city doesn't have funding to do a feature like that at this time as part of the first phase of this park development. They are very costly, very well loved and used, but also have a big price tag associated with them. So we'd like your feedback on that. Is that something that you want to see in this park? Going south of there, again, this really is the central spine, central core of the park here. To the south end of that central core spine of the park, we're proposing some kind of court. That's something else that we're asking you to provide feedback on. Is that a tennis court? Is it a basketball court? Is it a volleyball court? What do you guys want to see in this park, if any kind of court? Other than that, we've provided some small pavilions, that can do double duty, either watching the playground area or watching the interactive water feature there, or also backing up onto what we're showing as 2 baseball fields in that really is just a multi-use open space area there. So not only will it be used for baseball, it'll also be used for flag football, lacrosse practice, soccer practice, and obviously as the need comes, the city will respond and program that as they need to program it. But with the infrastructure of the backstops there to provide for baseball use. There was discussion, I heard some people talking about it over here that maybe live on the park perimeter, about the orientation of those ball fields. We debated that back and forth, and so that's again, something that you can be sure to comment on if you have a preference one way or the other. Common amenity that you see in parks and people like to see is a circulation path. You know, moms and dads or joggers or, you know, whatever want to have a loop that they can go around the park and maybe, you know, see how far they can run or, you know, track what distance they've ran, that kind of thing. So if you look at the plan, there are many different routes, but there is, generally speaking, you know, one large circulation path that will take you around the entire perimeter of the park. That'll be amenitized with benches and picnic tables and different things so that as you're walking around the park and maybe want to get away from that core area where all the activity is going to be, you can get out to the perimeter of the park and sit on a bench and be in a more quiet, passive area and enjoy the beautiful setting that the park sits in. I think generally speaking, that's the main guts of the plan. Oh, yes, one thing I do want to mention, and we do have a rendition of it on one of our boards, is, again, going back to the pioneer heritage, one of the requirements of the development of this park is to include an obelisk that I believe is already created that pays homage to the pioneers that first established this area in Kaysville. And so that's actually on this board over here, and we can look at that in a second. And it is, I talked about that apron or that setting as you come into the park. It is at a very centralized and prominent location within that apron that leads up to the pavilion restroom area.
It may be helpful for me to zoom in on some of these images and you can help them understand where they're at.
Well, they're repeated on further slides, so I don't think we need to zoom in on that one. Yep. So as we're talking about the architecture, the pioneer heritage of the park, we showed some sample imagery to the Citizens Committee, and they really did respond to this kind of this rustic barn structure. So there are a couple pictures representing that there. And so that's kind of the path that we're headed down right now. And again, we certainly are here to hear your input. If you don't like that idea, you can certainly voice that to us. But that's kind of the road we're going down right now. We think that it'll be, again, can be a very iconic structure that provides a very strong identity to the park. So looking at what those look like, obviously there are maintenance concerns and functionality concerns and all these different things that come along with a city pavilion and a city restroom. And so we need to kind of interpret that into something that the city can maintain and use. And so what we've provided for you is, again, some options that are very similar to this and maybe some that are a little bit different to those images. So if you want to zoom out and maybe just zoom on those four there. So what we show here in these four photos are basically prefabricated pavilion structures. Now, not that our structure has to be prefabricated, but there is benefit to having structures like these that are made of metal, as it says, that are easy to maintain and that are very long-lasting. But you know, if that's not the look and the feel that you want to go for, and it's maybe contrasting to those images of the barns that I showed you, there's the opportunity to go with something that is you know, more made out of wood, that has that large timber, more, you know, barn, rustic feel to it. So we want your feedback on that. Regardless, as you see here, even if it's metal, we can still tie into some of those barn shapes and items, or something that looks, you know, very farmy, that can tie into those themes. And again, like I talked about, those are just some renditions of the obelisk that we put together. We can look at it when we go to the individual boards. But it is four-sided, so one side does say Pioneer Park with an image there, and then the other three sides, like I said, pay homage to specific pioneers that helped settle the area. Moving on to the site furniture of the park, we want to get your feedback on the benches, the trash receptacles, different things that we're going to have in the park. And so again, we included some images here. Again, some that are wood, some that are metal, some that are more traditional, some that may play off of different lines and structures and different things we're going to do with the architecture of the park. So we want your feedback on that. Then scrolling down into the trash receptacles, again, this would just kind of be a kit of parts for the park. Regardless of which way we go with the pavilion architecture, we want it all to tie together, to be consistent, compatible with each other, so that you don't have a pavilion that looks different than your bench, that looks different from your trash receptacle. We want it all to tie together. And then finally on this board, the last thing, like I said, is we're going to want your feedback on what kind of court you want to see in the park. There's a ton of images here, and that just speaks to the fact that there's all kinds of different directions and different structures that we can have in your playground. I won't go into the detail of all the different kinds, but is it themed? Is it modern? Does it look like a barn? Does it look like a train? Is it more urban looking? Is it more modern looking? Is it made of wood? All these different things. And so this board is probably the most complicated of all the ones that I want you to give feedback on. So on the left, it speaks more to just the general type of equipment that you want to see. Do you want to see something themed? Yes or no? Do you want to see something that's modern? Yes or no? Do you want to see something that's more traditional? Yes or no? Not any specifics. I want slides, I want swings, I want a yellow set of monkey bars. Not that, not yet. So on that left side, we want you to know generally what kind of play equipment you want to have. And then on the right side of that, it speaks more to the individual elements and pieces that make up the playground. Do you want spinners? Do you want swings? Do you want a ton of slides? What specific elements do you want in your playground? And again, we're not showing every single type of element that you can have in a piece of playground equipment. So again, we're just trying to get a sense and idea of what general direction you would like to see for your playground structures. And then finally, these are two perspectives that we created just to help bring the plan that you saw to life in a pseudo 3D way. And so this is looking from the southwest corner of the park on Angel Street, looking to the northeast. And so as you can see, there's the entryway into the park. There's the apron here that leads to this iconic architectural structure there. There's the court here, represented as a basketball court in this rendering. The landform, then the trees, the interactive water feature, and the multi-use open space fields behind all that. So hopefully, if you're not good at looking at a plan and reading the circles and the lines, this little sketch will help you visualize what the park can look like a little bit better. This looks at the north side of the park, or from the north, looking to the southwest. And so Jefferson Academy is down here. Angel Street is out here. So this really highlights that core playground area that shows the adventure play area and the maybe more traditional playground area for the younger kids. And again, with the park pavilion restroom building behind that. So, very brief overview of how we've gotten to where we are and what the park is made up of. What we want to do now is kind of break from this presentation format and have you come up to the boards that are along the wall here and ask us questions about the plan, talk to us about your preferences on these different elements that make up the park. And what we're going to do is, if you wouldn't mind coming up to, do you have the stickers? Coming up to Corey, he will give you a strip of paper that has 7 stickers on it. So this is where you have to listen and pay attention. So you have 7 stickers. So what I want you to do with those stickers is put a sticker next to elements that you prefer or that you like. And so what that means is, the plan kind of is what it is. If you have comments on the plan or if anything's missing on the plan, please write those comments on that comment form that is at the entry table there. We also give you an opportunity to say, hey, I really want this in the park and it's not there. So please write that down if that's the fact. But as you go through these boards, ask us questions about the plan, but as you get to the individual elements, the architecture, the site furnishings, the type of play court you want to see, and then finally the playground area, take your sticker. You get 1 sticker per element. So for example, we're not voting on the obelisk. The obelisk is what it is. It's going to be in the park. But what we are voting on is what kind of architecture do you want to see that pavilion be? So put a sticker next to the photo that you like the best, that you want to see the pavilion most look like. And as you go to benches, put a sticker next to the bench that you like the best. Put a sticker next to the trash receptacle you like the best. So that's 3 stickers so far. 4th sticker, put one next to what type of sport court you want to see in the park, if you want to see one. Then finally, as you go to the playground, this one's a little bit different. Again, we have a left side and we have a right side of that board. Put 1 sticker for what general type of play equipment you want to see. Is it themed? Is it modern? Is it traditional? That kind of thing. Put 1 sticker next to the equipment that you like to see. Then on the right side of that, you get 2 stickers for specific pieces or elements that make up the greater park structure. So hopefully that makes sense. If you want to move from left to right, we can walk you through that process, and again, just so that we make sure that we get it right. In the end, obviously, what the stickers do is it just gives us a good idea, a quick idea of what the general consensus is and preferences are of the larger group. Are there any questions before we break and move over to the boards? Or comments? Yes?
So I'm just not familiar with what's around us. We're talking about what type of sports court.
Yep.
There could be basketball, well, there's basketball, volleyball, and tennis.
Correct.
From this park, where is the next basketball court? Where's the next volleyball court? Where's the next tennis court? You know?
I'll let Cole or Chris answer.
I'm just thinking, if there's another one that's 3 blocks away.
That's a great question. Thank you. For those who couldn't hear that question, he was asking, so, you know, the different elements of this park, what amenities are available in where's the nearest other slide or other basketball court or other kind of amenities. We have people, and raise your hands once again, people who served on the citizen community. If you could raise your hand, take a look around and see the people who are raising their hands right now, as well as Cole Stevens is right here. We have Chris Willie, who is right in the back there, and then we've also got Justin Brimhall over here with the hat, raising his hand. Those are Parks and Rec employees, and I'm Chris Snell from the City Council. So we are going to be here as well, so go ahead and ask your questions, and we'll try to give you those kinds of answers, because the folks from Blue Line aren't going to know what is closest by. They're not as familiar with our parks. So, all right, but we're going to be over here as you mill through. Please ask those questions, because we can help give you a better idea on that. Yes, sir.
I have a question about drainage and the height of the park, and that neighborhood already has a huge problem with water. So,
Great question.
has that been considered with water mitigation for the adjoining property?
Yeah, the issue of the drainage specifically in that southeast corner of the park has been brought up from the Citizens Committee. Your house.
This area is particularly bad, right?
That area
Yeah.
right there,
Right. Right.
right.
So we are aware, and just to let you know, we're landscape architects and we're really smart guys, but we do have professionals on our team that are civil engineers that know the ins and outs of drainage and mitigating for any drainage issues that may exist on the site that we'll mitigate for as we do the final design of the park. And so we are aware of the issue. And again, if there are any other issues, please let us know, because as we move into final design, we want to address those issues, especially as it pertains to drainage and safety and different things like that.
Leave this up to this.
Yep. Sure.
Okay. Let's go ahead and start milling about. So you can come and take a look at the pictures. And please ask your questions. Please interact.